All right, well, good afternoon. Shabbat Shalom. Okay, good afternoon. Shabbat Shalom. Let's see if we remember this from Sukkot. Yeah, I don't know what, we don't have to stop doing it, right? One more time. All right, because he is dependable. He's dependable. And that's what we're going to talk about today is dependability. And we started off today with worship, and it was beautiful. And who can yell out a name of one of the songs that we sung? Oh, yeah. Does it talk about his dependability in there? His faithfulness? How we put our trust in him? Right? So we know that Yah, our Father in heaven, Abba Father, is dependable, and we should be as well. We should be. I like that, just right from we should, yes. Right? That's the goal there, right? As we begin this, I like to say, who is this for? And this study is personal. It's really for me. And I did this already with the last one. And if you ever want to get good at something, Donnie, you probably know this. If you ever want to get good at something, study it with the intention of teaching it. It's really a different type of study than if you just are just reading through somebody else's notes. And this being personal hit me pretty hard this week. And I have to openly admit to the entire congregation, I'm not as dependable as I thought I was. I'm just really not. And when I look at my history and where I was 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, I'm not, that historical person of me was not dependable. I was very selfish, and I'm really working on that. And to my family, I'm sorry that I wasn't always dependable. And it's really hard when you realize and you study and you look back and you're like, all of these things that were right in front of you for so long, you have failed at because of your lack of dependability. So in humility, I have to admit, you could probably get more dependable people up here to teach this. In humility, I have to admit, there were times this week when studying this topic, I thought about calling Mike and being like, I can't teach on dependability. I'm not there. I'm not as dependable as I want to be, or as I should be for the Father, or as I should be for everybody here. And I think that studying this, hopefully I got something out of it, and hopefully you will too. So the knowledge is really for everybody. For young people, and I want to explain what I mean by young people. We'll say like 10 and under, right? 10 and under. This is, you can plan ahead. You can learn a new word, dependability, right? I want you in here to understand what that means. For teens, that great is your faithfulness, that I put my trust in you completely because I can depend on the Father. And if he is the perfect example of dependability, shouldn't we also try to be as dependable as we can in our lives? We should strive for that. What we're going to do then is a deeper study into this word. Now, the word dependability, faithfulness, trustful, in the Greek is pitos. If you're Greek, you probably know I'm saying it wrong. That's okay. But that's how they would say that somebody's dependable. In the Hebrew, it's aman, A-M-A-N. Do you know this word, Donnie? Aman. See, I don't have the tongue for it yet. I'll work on that. Maybe you can help me. I know I could depend on Donnie if I went over there and asked him for help. The definition of dependable. Now, this is the English definition. It's a quantity or a quality of being able to be relied on, trustworthy, or consistency. It is capable of being trusted or depended on. It's reliable. You'd think all the definitions would be the same. The quantity or the quality of being able to be trusted and being very likely to do what people expect. Very likely to do what people expect. Interestingly, though, you have to know what people are expecting for you to be dependable for them. If they don't put out there, hey, I'm expecting you to do this, and you don't end up doing it, they might see you're not dependable. And in reality, you might not be dependable if you've got a relationship and they're expecting you to do these things, because dependability revolves around relationship. Now, last time I did this, somebody said, I don't understand why you went into the synonyms of dependability, or of the word you picked, and I really appreciated that feedback. So I'm going to explain to you why I give the synonyms. And Donnie, he left, but he could probably explain it much better. Anybody who studies Hebrew can probably explain this as well. The concept and idea of a single word in your Bible comes from the Hebrew to the Greek and to the Latin, and it gets translated and repeated, and sometimes it's word for word, and sometimes it's sentence for sentence, and it really gets confusing. So, what's that? Okay.
Translates a thought.
Yeah, it translates a thought. So the idea of we just say, well, you search dependability, and you might not find it in your translation. You might find these other words that are synonymous for dependability, or that show the characteristic of dependability, and you need to look for them. So loyal. If you see loyal, it's pretty similar to dependability. Or trustworthy. Steady. Again, all these words are good. Sturdy. True. If something is true, it's dependable. Certain. Constant. Faithful. Rock-like. Secure. Stable. Unfailing. When we talk about our Father in heaven, could you say that he is all of those things? He is. Johanan, John called Mark. the front row, you might not know if there's people. Jar that everything doesn't fit into, but it says cashews in farm letter, and it's on the shelf, and it's beautiful, and then they take the jar of cashews, and then they hide it in the basement somewhere, and you don't know how many cashews you actually have, but when the jar is gone, you know you have another jar, right? You can be that organized, but you don't have to be, right? But dependable people are organized. They know what they got. They know where it's at. They know how to get it pretty quick. Be accountable. Dependable people are accountable. This is something that I try to be extremely accountable, and I'm not always. I might go to Menards and see that the Boy Scouts are selling popcorn, and they sucker you in, right? But you went to Menards just for one thing, and you didn't tell everybody that, oh, I got popcorn too. Well, where's the bag? I ate it, right? Like, it happens, but you have to be accountable to that. People, your spouse, your significant other, your kids, when you have, caramel all over your beard, they should know, right? Dependable people don't do that. Be consistent, right? When you speak and act consistently, whether in the chairs here, out there at the food line, or at work, which sounds like some people have difficult work situations, you should be consistent. Your language, your speech, your approach should all be consistent. Meet deadlines. Not like, hi, deadline, nice to meet you, I'm gone. Like actually meet the deadline and achieve your goal at an appropriate time. Dependable people meet their deadlines. Dependable people can be seen as part of a team. I'm not great at everything. I'm really bad at a lot of stuff. But as a team, I can be dependable to do my part. Dependable people and dependable adults, they follow through. They follow up with the people throughout the week, not just on Shabbat. They call them and say, hey, how's it going? I remember praying for you on Shabbat. How's that everything working out? You build that relationship, that trust. You can be trusted to be good. That's being dependable. Now we know what it looks like as an adult, so how do we help a child with dependability? And by child, I mean like 10 and under, but you know your kid's actual abilities, right? How do we help them? Well, you help them by keeping your promises. And you teach them in the little promises that they make, they should keep them. And then you use big words with them and you say, you are very dependable. I appreciate your promise and I can depend on you in the future. Thank you. You keep your promises with them even when it's difficult. That's how you show them dependability. Because it's not easy to keep your promises, because if it was always easy, an interesting way, once you've got this lesson ingrained in them, once they understand dependability, once you go, oh, you're a good team player, we all rely on you, can you depend on, sit down with them and say, hey, now that you know what trustworthy is, who is trustworthy? And ask them to describe what it means to be trustworthy back to you. And then say, why is that important? And when they tell you who's trustworthy and who's dependable in their life, and they don't immediately say you, work on yourself. That's something hard for me. I asked my kids, am I dependable? Most of the time. But you know what? They're not going to remember the most of the time. They're going to remember when I didn't tuck them in. They're going to remember the hard things, when it was too hard for me to do the right thing and I just did the wrong thing. Give them age-appropriate responsibilities. Hey, you pick up all your toys. You should fold your clothes. You're old enough. And then talk to them about how them doing that shows that they are dependable people. And then follow up. Don't just, and this is another area that I'm working on, don't just say, hey, you did that, great job, here's your next task. Here's the next thing to do, go. But actually show them your appreciation in their dependability. Now, train an adolescent. An adolescent, just so you know, is the ages 11 to 19 or sometimes 22. depending on how you grade adolescence, right? It's that period between you're not a child and you're not really like an adult on your own. So this is, I don't want to say the young folk because I don't teach the young folks. Other people do that and do an amazing job, thank you. But this is that kind of, that gap between you're a child and you're getting bigger. This is you guys probably, right? Like, do you consider yourself an adolescent? A little bit, okay. I appreciate that, right? Explain to them the importance. This is a much more mature conversation than just, hey, it's important. But you're actually explaining to them why it's important to be dependable, not just to your parents, but to their friends, to the world around them. It's going to allow them to have a place in the world. If you're dependable, you have a place in the world. People get fired from their jobs for not being dependable. What does that mean? They didn't show up on time. They didn't do their work. They talked back. They weren't dependable, right? So let them know being dependable gives you a place in this world. Teach them about boundaries. Dependable people set walls up. Those walls are not there to stop you from having fun. They're there to protect what's inside, right? Dependable people protect what's inside their walls, and that's why they put them up. It's okay for a young person to say no. And what was it we heard this morning? That other people will be amazed when you're dependable to the word and to Yahovah. The world will go, why aren't you just sinning with us? But that's glory to the Father. With them, teach them to be present, available, active, and engaged. One of the easiest ways to not be those items is to be in your cell phone while you're around your friends. That's a really easy way to not be engaged. Right? Dependable people aren't always in their cell phones. Now, you might not get a chance to see if that person's dependable or not because no one's going to come up to you who's sitting there just playing Mario Kart on your cell phone all day and say, hey, can I get some help? They're just going to pass over you. They just don't care anymore. But you will lose your job. You will lose your family. You will lose important things to you if you're not dependable because you're not present, available, active, and engaged. Examine ourselves. Have I affected? Has your dependability or lack of dependability affected the people around you in a negative or positive way? Ask yourself. Like, seriously, take a moment. You got your answer? Good. Now ask your friend. Seriously, take a minute now. Look to the people to your left and your right and ask, if you don't have anybody on your right, you can't ask them. There's nobody there. There's nobody there. Okay. Ask them, am I dependable? Take your moment. Talk to the people around you. Ask your kids. Now that we've asked our friends and we got a little better understanding, in this 360-degree check your morality. Does your dependability align with the dependability that the Father has placed upon you? The actions that He requires of you? Can He depend on you to do it? Can He depend on you if He gives you the inclining to go work at a soup kitchen? Can the Father depend on you to go to a soup kitchen? Or are you not dependable for that? If He gives you the inkling to, say, adopt some kids from another country, are you willing to adopt kids from another country? Somebody's like, yeah, I'm clearly. Right, we get it. Right? if he gives you the inclination, I'll use that word, the inclination to give $5 to the person on the side of the street who you know is going to spend it on alcohol, or you believe is going to spend it on alcohol, can he depend on you to give that to them and talk to them about why you're giving it to them? I think you might spend this on the wrong thing, but my Father in heaven says I should give this to you. I hope you have a great day. And then action. You checked yourself. You did a friend check. You made sure that everything is aligned. Take action. Be dependable to the body, to the Father, to your spouse, to your children. But don't lie to yourself about how dependable you are. Accountability. We're not going to change other people, but we can change ourselves. We can work on ourselves in our dependableness and how dependable we are, allowing people to rely on us. We can inform others that I am trying to be more dependable. I want you to be able to come to me with a need, and I'm going to be able to take it and be serious with it. I'm not just going to brush you off. You can even process together. Ask people, what could I do to work on to be more dependable? Ask your kids and process that together. In conclusion, we are dependent upon Yahovah. We are dependent upon the Father for the breath that we take, for the world around us, for gravity, for water to be drank. We are dependent on so many of those things. And there's nothing wrong with that. But he has us, and he wants us to be dependable to him, to our community, to ourselves, to our families, and it is a requirement that we are dependable. Look back at Ruth and Naomi, Jonathan and David, Messiah and us, and these relationships that we can look at and glean from and say, let's be more dependable like these people were. And then ask yourself, how dependable are we? And be real with yourself. And hurt your ego a little bit to find out that you weren't as dependable as you thought you were. Be consistently reliable and trustworthy. Be dependable. Thank you so much for your time today.